5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Family, we back with another episode, and we got a special guest on today.
Special guest?
Extra emphasis on the special. Not
That's
gonna lie,
right. I
that
appreciate
boy,
that.
That dude
emphasis
got some.
on the special is crazy.
He got some type of disability or something.
Chill. Nah, it's your boy AJ. Here with my boy Shell.
You're,
He's already dissing me 20 seconds in. That's crazy.
bro, it comes from a place of love, though.
Yeah, I bet.
Cause
I bet.
I know I'm special. My mom tells me I'm special all the time.
Yeah.
I've been tested, so nothing's wrong with me. So
Maybe again. Maybe one more time. You get tested again.
that
Just-
pause, we're just staring.
That is crazy. I was just surprised that you would admit to something like that, even though it sounds like they didn't know what they were doing.
Honestly, bro, there's no shame.
That's fair. That's fair.
Ain't no shame.
That's fair.
In Christ Jesus.
That's right.
Can I get a amen? I need the organ like.
You got a keyboard over
Yeah,
here.
I need the
so
keyboard.
Just get Brian in here.
Facts. Where's Brian? Nah, man, but yeah, so I'll just let y'all know, man, he's gonna be coming on full time with me to do this thing, and God doesn't send us alone; He sends us in pairs or more. And so this is somebody that God has put on my heart, and He's put this on his heart as well. And we just, through friendship, we just kind of came together and were like, hey, I think we need to run together with this thing. And so we prayed about it, we talked about it, and we even gave it a little test run. We saw how good it was. We ain't gonna release that episode because it was full of foolery. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, that's right. It
That's
wasn't
just for
about
personal
that.
consumption only. We don't have enough scrubbers in the world for that one.
That's right.
We weren't cursing or anything, but it was just it was
just
a whole bunch
more
of tomfoolery.
Talking with your boy. You know?
Yeah, you know how it is. You know how it is. But yeah, so pretty soon he's gonna be giving his own solo pod with his own testimony, and I get to know him and stuff like that. And that's that, man. That's the homie, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm for sure excited. I think this is something that you and I are very similar in the way that we think, the way that we interact, especially I think with like wisdom and knowledge in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is one of those things that both of us feel very strongly and passionately about.
Right.
But I think that we need somebody else to help keep us on course, or to keep us continuing to carry out what we've, said we're going to do. And so it'll be interesting to watch as we kind of bounce off each other. We learn some things together. And more importantly, I mean, just give out whatever wisdom the Lord has given us and help us kind of refine ourselves as well. It's just
Absolutely.
a beautiful opportunity. I know that for me originally, it is kind of one of those things like everybody has a podcast nowadays. And I didn't want to be like everybody.
I don't want to be that guy.
But like, not everybody's going to say what I'm going to say or what you're going to say.
Right.
So it's not like the market is all taken up.
Right.
And it's
There's
no
no
more
space.
podcasts. But I think it'll be cool because I think that you and I are, at least I'll speak for myself. I'm just a verbal processor. So like I will talk through and figure things out as I talk. So this is a great format for me.
Right. I mean, I can second that. It's even though everybody has a podcast, coming from a Christian perspective, like we look at things from a biblical worldview.
Yeah.
And so because of that, then I filter everything through the lens of the Word of God. And so, but to offer that relatability, not just the relatability at the expense of truth.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times people get caught up in, I'm overly spiritual, I'm this, I'm holier than thou, I'm yes, you are a new creation, but you don't forget that you're human as well. And we need to, I think that we offer a good
Balance.
I don't want to say balance. I want to use a different word. What's the
Use a
word?
different word.
What's the word? I've been saying it all day, and all of a sudden I forgot it. It's dichotomy.
Okay.
Dichotomy.
All right. You've been
Dichotomy.
studying for your SATs again, huh?
And you know what I'm saying? My SAT was probably like a 980, bro. Like I was not
chill.
I didn't study for it. I just winged it.
Yeah, that sounds
I was
like
like, I
you.
just need this. Oh nope, it had to be at least 1,000 because I need that to get into the college I went to. So it's probably like 1,001.
Right.
Honestly,
1,000 some change.
1,000.001. Like, oh, you got your name right.
They
We'll let
rounded you
you
up.
in.
They rounded you up. They get him out of here.
Get him in here, man. We need to fill the quota. Whoa! Who said that?
Affirmative action is
affirmative
crazy.
action.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Affirmative
Yeah,
action.
affirmative action.
No.
Nah, that's not what we're talking about today. But yeah, so look, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, excited for it.
Absolutely. So what we're talking about and what we're diving into today, if you listen to my last episode, I ended off talking about fear, and that's exactly what we're going to be navigating today. We're going to be talking about our earthly fears, things we feared in the past, and how does the fear of God play into all of that. And it's going to get real honest and open. It's going to be hot.
Yeah, I mean, I think fear is one of those things that everybody deals with, but I think the way we're kind of taught to deal with them in society, and obviously we're talking about all sorts of fears and kinds of fears today, but you're either kind of taught to just ignore them or like succumb to them in one way. And so what does it look like for the Christian who believes that God is sovereign and has these tensions from the world to walk in a way that doesn't, ignore the fact that you feel those things, or, like we're going to get into the fear of man and the fear of God and what are those things and what does that look like, but how to be somebody that follows Jesus and loves Jesus and deals with them well, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. So which one you want to talk about first? The fear of man first and then juxtapose that to the fear of God? Or you just want to just go for it?
Yeah, I feel like the fear of God, to be honest, is a good starting point, just because I think that that's obviously the one that as Christians we would say is the good one to have, the one that we ought to have. Right. But I think it's the one initially that if you're not a believer or you're very new in your faith, that's the one that you're like, why would I be afraid of God? Like, what, what's that about? Right. That's the one that I think throws us off a little bit. And then I think the fear of man, it's a little bit easier to define what that looks like because you know what the authentic thing is supposed to be. Right. And so I think that the fear of God, the way that it's kind of been described in my life growing up, is it's less how we would, throw around the word fear today. Like it's not that I'm afraid of a spider and that's how I feel about God, but there's a certain level of respect, reverence, understanding of God's power and presence. I think it's been explained oftentimes as like you would fear a parent, especially like a dad in your life, that your dad is strong and you know that about him and you know that if he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. But more than that he has the ability to discipline you and he's going to, most of the time, hopefully you had a good dad experience, but have the right reason to discipline you as well. Right. So it's really that kind of balance of, not I'm afraid God's going to smite me at any point in life and I've got to have my head on a swivel as a Christian.
Aisle 9 and just you say something wrong and
that's right.
You get smoked next to some Fruity Pebbles. It's a wrap.
This is that thing where people will be like, oh, I can't go into a church, I might get struck by lightning. It's like, I don't think you understand what church is, dude.
Yeah. if anybody, all of us would have been out of there a long time ago.
Like, why would he strike you for going into church? Right. He should strike you when you're doing the thing that's wrong.
if that was the case.
That's what was going to happen. Facts. Yeah, it's a reverence. It's an understanding that God has wrath. Yeah. He is just. Yeah. And so that means discipline comes naturally. So we have to kind of factor that into how we live our life.
Right. As soon as you mentioned discipline, my mind immediately went to Hebrews 12. And that right there is where you talk about discipline. And it's talking about the discipline of God. So if we start reading around verse 3, I like to read New King James Version. To me, it's just straightforward, straight shooter. Now, sometimes like, okay, I go to maybe ESV or CSB. But reading around verse 3, it says, "For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. You have not yet resisted to bloodshed, striving against sin, and you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as to sons." And it says, "My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he chastens and scourges every son whom he receives." So scourge means disciplines. Right. And so in verse 7, "If you endure discipline, God deals with you as sons. For what son is there whom a father does not discipline? But if you are without disciplining, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate and not a son." Sheesh. "Furthermore, we have had human fathers, like you mentioned, who corrected us, and we paid them respect. Shall we not much more readily be in subjection to the Father of spirits and lived? For they indeed for a few days disciplined us as seemed best to them, but he for our profit, that we may be partakers of his holiness. Now," key verse, "now, no discipline seems to be joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, afterward, it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." When I tell you, every time I read this, and I think about where the Lord is leading me, how he's leading me, and the seasons that he helped me flow through.
Right.
And the season I'm in right now, bro, like the Lord has disciplined me big time.
Yeah.
And usually discipline has a negative connotation. It's like, oh,
right.
Oh, I'm getting
Punishment.
disciplined. That means I'm getting punished.
Yeah.
And I'm getting some type of negative response to this. But no, like this discipline is meant to produce something better for us. And so with that discipline, like let's talk about like the discipline spiritually, right? Obviously, you think about discipline physically, you know, okay, I'm on my 5 a.m. grind.
Right.
I'm doing all these things. I meal prep. I'm counting my macros, and I don't eat nothing that has concentrated sugar in it. And
Nothing fun.
Nothing fun.
No.
You just living a
Bland
life. You
Discipline.
may be healthy.
That's right.
You may be healthy. Kudos to you. But you are probably not happy.
That's right. That's right.
Let's
You
be
know.
honest. You tell me how your fourth kale salad was today, and
That's right.
it's already 11 a.m. and you're obviously lying.
Yeah, get a burger, fam. Live a little.
But we're talking about discipline spiritually. Okay, how is God calling me to discipline myself or accept the discipline that he wants from me spiritually? Okay, so what does that mean when I go into the word differently? What does that look like for me to go into prayer differently? What does it look like for me to serve in my community and be served by my community? Like, what is that? So how does that look for you?
Yeah, it's a great question, you know, because I think that going back to what that passage is talking about as well is this idea that our fathers who are earthly fathers discipline us well. And if you remember as a kid, you know, a good father would discipline you to change a behavior that is potentially harmful, right? And so when it's talking about an earthly father in that way, you know, say you as a kid or your kid one day, or maybe you have a kid, you know, like you go into the street, you're disciplined. Let's say that the discipline of that is that now you can't play outside unsupervised. Mm-hmm. Now I have to watch, and that means that sometimes you want to play outside and I'm busy. That means you got to stay inside. Well, the discipline is meant to keep you from harm. In that same way, if you think about discipline from a heavenly father, he's trying to discipline out of us behaviors that are potentially self-destructive in a lot of ways.
Right.
And so I think the way that you have to respond to discipline, I mean, Proverbs 1:7, right, the beginning of wisdom, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Mm-hmm. And so how you handle that really shows whether or not you value discipline in your life at all. Mm-hmm. For me personally, I think that it came from having people that could tell me the truth no matter what. And so some of these are pastors that I had growing up. You know, some of these are my spiritual fathers, but that I trust what they say to me, and I would make myself, I guess in a word, vulnerable to listen to what they had to say.
Right.
So, you know, if random person comes up to me and is like, I think that you're wrong here, I think that you shouldn't do this, it's like, okay, you know, maybe I'll take that to the Lord, maybe I won't. Mm-hmm. But you don't really have I haven't opened my life up to be disciplined by you.
Emotional equity.
In the same way, it's like, it gets a little weird space if like you're disciplining someone else's kids. Right? Like there's a weird line there of like, well, I don't let my kids go outside at all. And that might be your line as a parent, but like it might not be everybody's. And so in that same way, there's a couple people that I have in my life that we would call truth tellers, that when they say something like, hey, check yourself on this or just think about this, I listen. Chiefly one of those is my wife. Right? So being married, she gets to see...
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. All of the behind the scenes that not everybody also gets to see. Mm-hmm. And so when we're talking about what does God want us to do and how do we figure out God's will for our life, a lot of times she'll be the first one to say, hey, how you're thinking about this is wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, you're just still trying to get what you want, or maybe it's an interaction that I have. It's like, oh, I think I handled it this way. And she's like, oh, you know, I don't know if that was the right way to handle that. But I know that she loves me and that she's for me. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I'm willing to listen to her discipline or her rebuke or her whatever advice that she gives to me, because I think discipline has to happen in the safety of somebody who wants what's best for you. If you don't have that safety, then I don't think you have the grounds for healthy discipline. In the same way that, like, if I would have ever gone out, obviously, you know, we attend the same church. We're a part of the same young adult team. Right. If our pastor, Josh, I get up on stage because often I'm either preaching or I'm hosting or I'm doing something on stage. I get up and I say something that is wild. Like I say something that is just not true biblically, or it's just too far. I make a joke I shouldn't. I respond respond to the fact that I know that it's his platform that I am borrowing.
Yeah.
And because I have a great relationship with Josh, who's one of our brothers,
Right.
I know he wants what's best for me. So I'm going to shut up the voice inside that initially is like, I don't want to listen to that.
Right.
Because my personality is I don't want to submit to any authority that I think is whack. Genuinely. Like as somebody that I wouldn't say I have an authority issue. I have an authority issue when it comes to people that I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Like you're not qualified
Yeah,
to
like
lead me. Yeah.
I don't want to be like you. I think you have bad advice in this. But I think that's kind of the first way to look at it is, do you have a safe relationship where you know and trust that they are out for your good as well?
Right. Right. I think a good litmus test for that is to see in their life, how are you accepting the discipline of the Father and the discipline of those that are trying to have your best interests at heart? Because from what I've seen, a lot of times people are really quick to throw the first stone.
Oh, for sure.
Really quick to call out your fault, call out your sin. I mean, what does it say in Matthew or is it John where Jesus is like, hey, before you take the plank out of your brother's eye, like the ESV translation, because it says take the beam out of yours. Right. Like beam. Like think about a
splinter,
beam, bro. The beam. Think about a beam, dog. Beam. Think about your roof and all the beams that are connecting to make that roof.
Right.
You got one of those in your eye.
Yeah. He's got an itchy eye. You can't walk straight.
And you trying to take out the twig in mine, and you got a whole beam.
Crazy.
Right? You got a whole beam, dog. And so it's a humility piece that comes with that, where you have to check your pride, especially when you have somebody that actually that cares for you, loves you, and they tell you something about yourself. You're like, immediately, the first response is, I'm gonna shut off. I'm not listening to that. And then you have to check that. Okay, am I not listening to this because this is not true?
Yeah.
Or am I not listening to this because I don't like what they said because it is true?
Right.
And that's the fine line that a lot of people walk. I mean, I've walked that path myself for a long time, but I'm in a place where if you know me or if you have my best interest, I'm gonna take everything with a grain of salt.
Sure, yeah.
But you know when it's a word from God and it's as opposed to a word from them.
Oh yeah, it stings.
Like when somebody trying to tell you something, you're like, well, you don't even know me. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But sometimes it could even be like, this is a word from God for somebody you don't really know.
Right.
And it hits different. Like, hold up, you don't know me and you speak into my life this way? Hold on. All right, God, you know what? Let me check myself. And, oh, I was like that. I shouldn't have said that. I should forgive this person. Okay.
Yeah.
Bet. And so that humility piece is so huge, and checking your pride. And because if you don't check the pride and accept humility and have a more of a gracious heart towards the issue, you're going to miss the discipline God is trying to give you.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to force himself on you. God is a gentleman. He's like, if you don't want the discipline, be my guest. Go wild out. Go do your thing. Go out. But when you're ready to come back, I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to love you.
Yeah.
But discipline going to come back around that corner.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go back. That's all of the story of the prodigal son, right? Like, to me, the most powerful part of that story usually is people say, oh, it was while he was still a far ways away.
Right.
The dad was already there with his arms open, didn't let him get to work. For me, the most powerful part of the story is that's where the story ended.
Yeah.
There was not another prodigal moment. And so, at least by biblical rhetoric,
we're not told.
But if I was to read it like that, there wasn't another story of a prodigal son.
Right.
His other prodigal story, he had multiple. No, just one. He left. He got his inheritance, blew it, lost himself, came back, was forgiven, and was restored. And he stayed in restoration. He didn't go back to devastation.
Yeah, it's powerful.
He stayed in restoration. And in that, I'm sure that was work that was needed to be done, that he needs to do. Like, you know, I'm sure his dad had things for him to work out and work in the house and take care of the land and all these things. But he stayed with his father. Right. And so when I accept the discipline of God, I am staying with him. And if he's disciplining me as his son, like I said, like it says, if I respect my dad for the discipline that he given me, not everything I agree with.
Sure, yeah.
But he did what was best, that he knew what was best and was in my best interest. So why, like it says in the scripture, why would I not respect God even more? And I think that ties perfectly into, okay, do I actually fear God? or do I just love him? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because you got a lot of people who love God, but so many people don't fear him.
Yeah, almost like a respect thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I can love my dad and trample over all of his things he tells me to do, or like, yeah, you don't really know what you're talking about. Well, for one, we'd make the argument, I don't know if you love your dad the way you say you do, but there is a respect piece to it as well. I think something that you were saying that was really powerful was this idea, like, I think humility is the key to a lot of this in a couple ways. One of them is understanding, I think you were starting to hit this point a little bit, but you can either choose to learn and receive the pain of discipline, or you can learn from the pain of your consequences.
Yeah.
And the actions you choose.
Drastically. Yeah.
And I'll tell you which one you're going to prefer.
Yeah.
Because if you take the kid scenario I was talking about earlier about running in the street, learning from the consequences of your action is you getting hit by a car
and possibly dying,
right? Or nothing. At least you're talking breaking bones. You're talking incredible pain. All of the things that come with that. Or you can learn from the discipline of, man, I don't like that my dad is telling me to do this. I don't like the rules that are getting put in place, but I would rather choose that pain than what my consequences would get me. Then I think the other piece is that the whole son-parent relationship is built on the fact that as the kid, you don't know the world.
Facts.
You don't know everything.
Yeah.
And so as a parent, the job is I have to protect my kids from things they don't even know are out there.
Right.
Right? So like they don't even know that there are people that would harm them. They don't even know that if I walk in the road that there's potential death waiting for me, and in that way you kind of have to then realize, wait a second, I'm not the parent to God. I'm the kid. I don't even know what's out there. So his discipline might be shielding me from something I didn't even know I was stepping into.
Right.
And if that's the case, then I'm going to treat that well. Humility says, I recognize. I mean, here's a really good test for if you're prideful or not. Humility says, I know I don't know everything. So I'm going to ask and listen to wise wisdom, and I'm going to listen to good discipline in that way. The other end of that being pride, I'm 25 and I know how this world works. It's like, if you think you know everything that you're going to learn, for one, you're saying you're not going to learn another thing for the rest of your life.
Sad life.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
For two, you didn't know. You know everything you know at 25 and you're still making mistakes. So like, what are you doing? What are we talking about? So it's that humility of like, I'm not God and God is God. And that means he's all powerful. He's all knowing. He's in and out of time. He's outside of it. I'm going to trust what he says about the reality of the world rather than what my 25 years of experience have told me.
Yeah.
They called him, the Ancient of Age.
Right.
Ancient, fam. He's before it. And I'm out here like, I don't know. And typically, this is like 16, 17, 18 is where we feel a lot of this. Like,
I got it.
I got it.
Hold on, God.
Okay. So if you want to receive discipline, you have to be wise and not a fool. And that means you have to understand the humility of saying, I don't know everything that needs to be known. And consequences of my actions are going to come to me whether I know them or not. So let me trust that God knows what he's doing and receive that pain rather than learning from the pain of I just messed everything up.
And I'm pretty sure we've both been in that space where
Many
like
times.
Dang, my mouth got the better of me. My will for my own self got the better of me. I burned these people. I destroyed these relationships. I ruined this opportunity.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
I was dumb.
Yep. We had the stupid gene.
Stupid.
They say stupid is what stupid does, right?
That's right. Listen.
But there's growth in that if you allow it.
That's right.
There's redemption in that if you allow it. You can, like right now, I like that our church is going through leadership.
Right.
And, I was talking with a mentor and he was like, yo, like a good leader doesn't have to make mistakes. It's the fact that when they do, what do you do with that mistake?
It's good.
Which defines a good leader.
That's good.
And so when you make that mistake, whatever that is, how do you grow from it? How do you learn from it? Like, how does that lesson become a blessing?
Wow.
And I had to throw it in there.
His eyes lit up as he was saying the sentence. Before lesson even came out, he got so excited because it's Christmas. That was slick.
But for real though, like how is that being used for my benefit. Like one of my favorite quotes is like, not every day is bad. Every day has something good about it. Well, did I mess that up?
Say it again.
Hold on, I think I messed that quote up big time. I butchered that quote so bad. Every day may not be good, but every day has something good about it.
There it is.
There it is. I don't
That's
know what
the
I
one.
said before. We got to cut that. I don't know what I said. I had a stroke. trying to say that. And that's so powerful because that's a perspective change. That's a perspective shift. And so if I'm looking at that from the lens of God, that is me saying, okay, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice to be glad in it. So regardless of what's happening today, I can rejoice that God has made this day. And therefore, I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. I'm blessed at the core level of things. And so when it comes to me fearing things, it's usually like unhinged emotional trauma and pain and perceptions of how I view the world from childhood, from things that happened when I was in middle school, high school, college, up until this point. And you're kind of helping me walk through some of that stuff with just earthly fears of, like, for me, is intimacy.
Right.
I did not realize I had a fear of intimacy. And even when I say that word, I'm just like, I really can't tell you what it means for me.
Right.
I give you definitions all day.
Yeah, how's someone afraid of it?
Yeah, I give you definitions all day, but when intimacy gets close to me, my body's like, nah, fam, that's jet.
Bail. Yeah.
Bail out, let's go. Pill
For
out.
sure.
Foot on the gas, go the other direction.
Yeah.
And I noticed that not only my friendships and intimate relationships, but I noticed a lot with my relationship with God. And I was running from his intimacy with me.
Yeah.
The second he gets closer to me, that all of a sudden I don't have the drive to read anymore. I don't have the drive to pray anymore. I don't have the drive to serve anymore. I don't want to practice any of my spiritual disciplines. I'm just going to start doing my own thing and then get to a place where I self-sabotage my place and where I have a catalytic event to go back and do this. Okay, God, now I have a reason to call on your name. Now I have a reason to dive in your word. Now I have a reason to worship. I have a reason to serve. I have a reason to give. But you don't need that.
Right.
You don't need any of that. You should be able to do all those things just because of the character of who God is. And in that, he is showing me, like, hey, I know you need intimacy, and we're going to work through that. And we're going to work through some of the things that happened to you as a child and things that happened to you in your past relationships and all this stuff. But you have to come with a choice. I've revealed those things to you. Now, what is your next step?
Yeah.
Are you going to live the rest of your life fearing intimacy and not getting the fullness of, one, your relationship between you and I, which is going to destroy a lot of relationships between the people I've sent to love you?
Yeah.
Do you want to live like that? So you're 25. I'm not telling you how much time you have left, but theoretically, if you had all the time in the world, do you want to live a life just going from not having any really deep, meaningful connections with people?
Right.
Or do you want to live a life where you don't want to have any deep, meaningful connection with me? You just want to stay surface level? Just, you know your Bible, your Bible stories. You have a few theology things, some geographical things, some cultural things, some context. But what about the deepness and the seriousness and the meat of the word? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, I'm just like, yo, okay, God, you know what? You got me. Let's start working on it.
All right.
And so now I'm working through like the emotional things,
right,
and all this stuff. And I'm a typical guy. I'm not in tune with my emotions as I thought I was. Because I thought I was good until I wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought I was good until I wasn't. Like, hold on, God, what you doing with all this? It's okay.
Right.
Let's talk to it. Let's walk through it. So
yeah, that's the hard work. I'm sure that's a whole other episode in itself that we can get super into it. Because your story, my story, very similar when it comes to that kind of thing. But it's really about getting underneath why we feel the way we do. And I think in talking about fear, there's a lot of wisdom in that as well. But it's, when you say I have to wait for some event so that it makes sense for me to go to God, essentially, what we're saying is that we have this belief about ourselves that God doesn't love us. He tolerates us. Yeah. And so God doesn't want me to come into his presence unless I better have a good reason. I better, it's like if dad's watching a football game and I go and interrupt him, it better be for something important. Right. In which case your dad is tolerating you in that moment. But yeah, in the same way, when you go back to the fear of man and the fear of God and what it says about you and about what you feel, like we're saying, it's not that you are afraid of God that he might hurt you or that he might violate you, whatever word you want to put there, because that's what, those negative feelings are what we feel. in a lot of ways, when you directly contrast that with the fear of man, it really comes down to this idea of I care more about what God says and thinks about me
Right.
than what you say and think about me.
Right.
Or what they think about me. It's this idea that we have this opportunity to be more influenced, I think is the good word here. Influenced by what other people think about us, whether that's our family, our friends, our social circles, whatever. Our church is a big part where this happens. It's about I care more about what God says and what he thinks rather than if you think I should be doing something a certain way. And in that way, we can get into a little bit the fear of man and what it looks like in our own lives or how we've kind of seen it. But it really does come back to that bottom line of, you know, if God asks you to do something and people come, maybe even good people, maybe they're intentioned well. It's not that they're like out to manipulate you all the time, but they're like, maybe you should do this instead. Maybe you should think about this. I don't think God would say that, but you know, God told you to do something. It is disobedient and it is just so unwise for you to make the voices of people around you bigger than the voice of God. But a lot of this comes down to, and I think what's an interesting conversation about this is that people don't actually know that they can talk to God themselves.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't need the prophet man to go up the mountain anymore. No. Like Moses.
Right.
And if you read that story, Moses is like, you know, we'll go everybody. We'll take everybody. God will meet with us all. And they're like, nah, you go meet with him. We gonna stay right here.
I don't want to talk to him.
He sounds scary, fam.
I'm good.
Go, you tell us what he said.
I saw what he did to Pharaoh in that sea. You think I'm gonna go talk to him?
Exactly, dude.
I'm straight, bro.
We just barely got out of there, man.
I'll dap you up. You go ahead, do your thing, big dog.
Hey, tell him I said hi.
Hey, yeah. Send my love.
I think we still think it's like that,
right?
You know, it's like, well, God doesn't really talk to me; He talks to my pastor, and then my pastor talks to me, or He talks to my mentor, and then they talk to me. But it comes down to this idea that, like, if you don't think God is talking to you, it must be because you're not talking to Him. You're not making space. You're not listening. But because we have that access to God, that means that we have that choice to make. Who gets to speak louder? Who has more authority over our life? For example, because I think this is one of those theoretical conversations in a lot of ways, but like, if you feel called to go out and to use a gift that you've been given, right? For instance, it was to go out and to start a new church. If that's what you felt like God was putting on your heart, and that's really what you felt like God has given me these gifts to do, and other people just hit you all the time with, you're never going to succeed. I don't think God would ask you to do that. Let's say it's your old church that's now coming to you and they're like, nah, dude, that's not God.
Yeah, that's whack.
God wants you to serve here in my house. This happens all the time.
Right.
You need to be a part of what we're doing. That is disobedient. That's rebellion. All that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, here's a great way to put it into perspective. When you die, who's sitting on the judgment seat? God is the judge. They are not.
Right.
You will have to answer for what you did and you chose, not what they told you to do.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't want to do here, right?
Accountability.
And maybe you can hit a little bit of this because you're already saying it a little bit. It's that fear of man is really for people that just don't want to be accountable to their own actions.
Message.
Because if you understood, I have to give an account for what I did.
Yeah, everything.
Everything.
And everything you refuse to do.
That's right. And you know, as kids and, you know, as unregulated adults,
Unregulated, I like that word.
we get these people like, yeah, but they made me do that. Or did you see what they did? And God's like, that's cute. We're not talking about them right now. We're talking about what you did.
Yeah.
And if you're afraid of man, I'm going to say you probably don't fear being accountable enough. Maybe that's just me.
Nah, I mean, I would agree because as soon as you said, yeah, you should fear God more than anything else.
Right.
So if I have the right perspective and the fear of God, then all those other things don't really matter. Yes, you should check those with the word. You should, process some of these fears. That's a very normal thing to do, right? But I don't want to put my fear of man or fear of the world over my fear of God.
Right.
Because the second I do that, then the perspective changes.
Yep.
And instead of looking up, I start looking in.
It's good.
And the second I start looking in, I start to rely on my own understanding. Something we talked about. We don't know everything.
It's good.
We don't know what we don't know. How can I accurately like really look into my heart and see what's in there. When it's like the idea of holding yourself accountable, like the idea of it is nice, but the practicality is really not that. It's not that good, because think about it. Say you're somebody who struggles with lust or pornography, right? Or whatever you struggle with.
Yeah.
When you want to do that thing, you will move heaven and earth and justify why you should do that. And so I like to use this example of imagine that you're a football game, and the football stadium, all that, you're playing a game, and that's pretty much like your problem that you have.
Okay.
Right. So how can I hold myself accountable when I'm the player, I'm the offense and the defense and the coach and the ref and the commissioner and the janitor and the fans and the parking lot attendant? Right. How can I hold myself accountable when I know every single play and every single trick play that would trick me from the regular play that I know that I should do? Right. I need an outside perspective. I need a heavenly perspective. I need community and people who can look at me and see, okay, this is where you're going wrong. And we go circle all the way back into the humility to accept that and see that. But I cannot look inward and see everything that's in me. It's not possible, because just the way your brain works. That's why we have trauma, things from our childhood that we don't even know that we deal with, because we've repressed it, we've compartmentalized it, and it's a blur to us. But it's affecting us on the back end. We just don't know. There are things that I deal with that I probably to this day don't know that I'm dealing with. Right. In time, through intentionality, those things will be revealed, and you work through those things. But everybody has something that you just don't know. Because like I said, we don't know everything. I think that's a part of our sanctification process. The closer we get to God, the more he's able to call those things out of us. Right. Because if he took out all that stuff on the day of conversion, why would I need him? Yeah. It's over. It's like you said, now I know everything. Now I'm good. Right. I'm good. I'm straight. I don't need
Thanks, God. I'll see you later. Yep.
We're done. You know what? Actually, I appreciate all the work you did, and you cleaned me up, and you made me pure, all these things. But yeah, that's about it. It's a one-way street. I'm gonna use you like a one-night stand, get my hit, and I'm gone. Yeah. Nah, man, that ain't it. Yeah. And especially when you're talking about how people don't think that you can talk to him. Like God, this is like blows my mind, bro. We have a God of the God of the universe. Like you said, all powerful, all knowing, all these things. You created everything, and you want to talk to me? You sent your son to die for me, knowing that there was a chance that I would reject him fully and not care for the sacrifice that you made. You sent your only son for somebody like me. Yeah. Like, in sports terms, that's the worst trade in history.
Yeah, you got finessed.
Yeah, like, bro, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, the GM of a team made that trade. Yeah, they're no longer the GM. It's over.
And God's like, yeah, I know, but I still love you though. Yeah, but just because I love you don't mean you get a free pass. Like there is a standard that you should meet. There is a standard that I request of you. I'm not gonna force that on you, but if you really call yourself my disciple, you will accept the things that I'm leading you in, because my leadership, my leading you, is going to produce everything that you need for this life and the next. Yeah. And so.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think a big part of the fear of man that we haven't hit yet is really caring more about the praise that you get from other people.
Who you live by the compliment, you die by it too.
That's right. And I think the way that you have to kind of watch your own heart in this, because you can't live to be impressive for other people, right? And also obedient to God. You've got to pick one.
Can't serve two masters, brother.
You got to pick one. And so I think that as somebody that, like I told earlier this week, I preached again at our young adult service.
Boy brought the word, boy, he had me ugly crying in there, bro. I wasn't the only one. He had everybody in there shed tears, bro. I was like, man, bro, why every time he preached up there, something crazy happened. Okay, slight plug. The last time he preached, bro, we had a huge altar call. We were supposed to go to groups. When no groups had, everybody was confessing all these things. The Spirit of God. So don't leave your Bible around this man, because the word just might jump off the page. Like, for real. Like, this man has probably he probably called this man Thanos of faith, but he got all the Infinity Stones of faith.
Josh and I had written this past message series together. And I think he just gives me really good messages to preach, to be honest. I think he gives me really good topics. Like, obviously, my past one was about pain and how we handle that. And so sometimes as a communicator, you're like, how do I make this relatable to everybody? I don't have to work that hard for pain.
That's true.
Everybody already, I say, what hurts you? And you're already there.
Yeah.
You already got it.
Right.
And now I can do the work. And so I look at it a lot of times. Some of the times that the reaction and the response is so big is because a lot of the groundwork that has been done in the past weeks leading up to it from Josh or whoever else is preaching. But, you know, he's teeing me up.
I was literally thinking about. He's lobbing you. I was like, all right, I got through the defense. I crossed everybody up. All right, AJ, here you go. Slam
in
that
that way,
thing.
like I don't have like false humility about it either. Like I'm gonna grab the alley oop and I'm gonna 360 dunk it. You know,
Facts.
like I know what I'm good at, and I am a gifted communicator in that way. But I think because of that, there had been a space in my life where I cared more about getting the applause and the amens and the admiration than I did about hearing God say of me, well done, my good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things that preaches really well. But once again, in practical living it out, the reason that we have an issue of the fear of man in America specifically, really, when you look at the effect of social media on us,
oh my goodness,
you have the instant access to how are people feeling about me,
right?
Really your content, but we look at it as how do they feel about me? I get immediate feedback on who's liking it, who's commenting, who's sharing, who's talking about it, who's quote tweeting, who's sharing on the story, all of those things. I have all of these kinds of feedback available to me and metrics that I can gauge myself. Instantly accessible. When I like your story, you immediately get a notification about it. The issue is that we want the immediate cheap version of ultimately what is eternal.
Yeah.
But we don't get to experience it in that immediate self-gratification kind of way. And it's not necessarily delayed gratification because God doesn't withhold affection from us. But he might, in a way, create some space so that you don't live for the acceptance because you're already accepted. You're already there.
Right.
So in that way, it's kind of one of those things of if you have a issue with self-worth, which I definitely had growing up a lot, self-acceptance, a lot of those things, then you just wanted people to love you and like you because you didn't think that you were a likable person, then you're like prime candidate number 8 for this kind of fear of man. Because it's not like I'm afraid of what they're going to do to me. It's I don't know who I am when the applause stops. That's why I do what I do. And if you're doing that, you know, this is one of those areas that like really gifted and talented communicators live for the applause of people. It doesn't mean you're not good at what you do.
Right.
But I would say that there is a difference. One of the reasons why we see a response when I preach is because I'm being obedient to what God has told me to say.
Right.
It's not that I have now solved mankind and I'm like, here's what it is. You know, I've read over the scripture. You know, me and Josh have talked through it. I've looked at commentaries. We've studied whatever. We've asked the Lord to reveal himself. And if I was doing it for the applause, it wouldn't hit the same. It wouldn't hit the same. In fact, one of the worst things that happened to me growing up when it came to preaching, because I've been preaching for a while now, and a lot of times it was like kindergarten, first grade, or you know, anywhere from K through 5th grade that I would do every weekend at the church I was a part of. Is people would come up to me and be like, dude, that was so emotional. That was so awesome. I don't remember what you said, but I felt something. You know, at some level, if people have bad memories, I'm not saying, you know, like that's how you gauge whether or not my wife has a terrible memory, but that's the ADHD, you know, that's something else.
Talking.
But people are like, you made me feel good, but I don't know what you talked about. Bro.
What does that even mean?
That is like the worst thing you can say to me.
Yeah.
About something that I cared so much to put. And in their defense, whoever these hypothetical people were, that usually was a reflection of I said what I wanted to say. Or I said things that maybe people wanted to hear.
Oh, yeah, that feel-good message, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to encourage. I want to do all that kind of stuff, which is hilarious. Because on a one-on-one perspective, like when I'm with somebody, like I'm pretty, like I'll I'll oppose you about it. Like I'm not here to make you feel good. But when you get to a big stage, sometimes you're like, oh well, I would like all these people to like me. I'm in the center of attention right now. Mm-hmm. So I think it comes down to now today. I gave this plug last week too. After Josh, I think a lot of communicators have learned to be good without the praise of people. Mm-hmm. If somebody says something that like sticks out to you and like affects you, like tell them. Like we want to hear those things mm-hmm. too. But I'm not going to stop what I'm doing if I don't hear
that part. Yeah.
I'm gonna now take it and I'm gonna hold it. And here's a big difference as well. If you can receive the praise of people mm-hmm. and still give God His glory, mm-hmm. you're great. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we like the feeling of praise so much we want to get in the way of the glory too.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for somebody to pat you on the back, maybe check your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as soon as you said talking about the glory piece, I mean, just level of vulnerability. I realized that in a lot of instances in my life or things that I have hurt and pain from things or circumstances, it's because I wanted the glory that God was only able and capable to accept.
Yeah.
For example, I played college tennis for 4 years, and so that's years of grinding before to get to that space.
Right. An athlete.
Yes, sometimes. Dude, I've been tripping lately over. I haven't been falling. I've been just tripping up on stuff. Like, yo, this is not athletic. This is not right. I gotta repent. I gotta repent or something. I don't know what's going on. My balance is off. But years of grinding and discipline to get to it at the college level.
Right.
Now to be successful at the college, there's even more grind, more intention, taking care of your body, all these things. And the college athlete lives for their senior year. Like you live for the last year, especially if you don't have aspirations to go pro or anything like that. That was not in my forte. So all this time I'm thinking, all right, it's my senior year. I want it to be the best season ever. I'm grinding. I'm in the gym. I'm eating right. I'm not doing all these crazy things that's gonna stunt my growth and all these things. And I'm going. And I'm seeing the fruit of that. Like I'm playing the best I've ever played.
Yeah.
I finally feel like I learned how to actually play the game like rightly, and all these things. And fast forward, so I graduated in 2020, right? So we started playing matches in January. We're going nuts. We're going on a spring break trip. It's in March, right before COVID just shut everything down.
Shout out COVID.
We played the number 14 team in the country. After a 13-hour bus ride, they didn't want to let us rest, so we ended up losing that match, which is bogus. I think we could have beat them.
Yeah, but you're not bothered by it though.
Nah, I was like that. I was like, man, we could have had a job. It's whatever. But after that, we beat 3 top 25 teams back to back to back.
Dang, fam.
1 day, 2 day, 3 day, back to back to back. And we not only did we win, we dominated those top 25 teams. So after that, we were about to come back to campus and start conference. And the year before that, we went undefeated in conference, and we lost in the semifinal of the conference tournament, which killed our bid to nationals.
Sure.
So we had that drive and that motivation. Returned the same team, a few better players. So it was like, our confidence was like through the roof. Like ain't nobody touching this shit. We're on like demon time, but we were like
we are those guys.
Yeah. So you say we are. The only thing that comes out, we are farmers.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
But anyway, and so when COVID happened, I was like, nah, this can't be real. Like, not my senior year. Like, I don't get senior day. I don't get all these things. I saw the road being paved to nationals. That was the ultimate goal, was to make nationals for the first time as a men's team at my university. And I found myself in the place of loss and hurt and anger at God. Like, God, how could you take this away from me? Right? Granted, it's a whole global thing. Everybody got their things going on. People losing their jobs and
people dying,
losing their health and all this stuff. But I'm like, God, how could you take this thing from me? God, what about all this hard work that I put in? I've done all these things for all this time to not see any fruit from it. And I kept that for about 2.5 years. So after I graduated, I got into a coaching job. I was doing that. I was like, okay, I thought coaching was going to be my life plan. And the more I coached, the more I was like, man, I don't like this. I didn't like college coaching because I hated recruiting. I just hated recruiting. I couldn't stand it. But as time went on, I was like, man, tennis ain't for me. I'm struggling spiritually in the place I was at. And through all of that, I gave up tennis, had another job, got fired, and then God put me back in tennis.
Right.
And now I'm feeling more fulfillment than I ever had.
Yeah.
And I ever had. But where I was going with all of that was the reason why I wanted the glory right? Because I had all these dreams and aspirations of, being the clincher match, hitting the buzzer beater type thing, being
Walk
the one,
off.
being the walk off. Every athlete dreams of that moment. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be the walk off. I want to be the one to send us to state. I want to be the
Right.
one that wins us a championship or hit the buzzer beater to beat a rival or whatever. I wanted that glory so bad that I missed all of the blessings that went into that. All the people that were impacted
Wow.
through the things that he's allowed me to do.
Yeah.
All the things that he was showing me that he grew in me. Like all the benefits that come from just general athleticism in general, like being healthy, being limber, and having the energy and all these things and having a drive to do certain stuff. I'm like, I missed it because I just wanted the glory.
Yeah.
And God was like, hey, that was not my intention of putting you there and sustaining you for that long. You were about to miss out on everything that I showed you, and you were about to miss out on all my faithfulness through all those years to keeping you healthy, giving you longevity. You're about to miss out all on it just because you wanted a trophy. You wanted the applause from social media. You wanted people like, oh, good job. Like, you're the GOAT. You're this. You worked hard and all this stuff. You wanted that.
Yeah.
But you didn't care to hear that from me.
Oof.
You didn't care to hear that from me. I'm the one that gave you the desire to play tennis. I'm the one that gave you the ability to learn it. I'm the one that gave you the ability to excel and pick it up quick. Because I started late. I started when I was 14. Most people start when they're like 7, 8.
Yeah.
So to be where I was at that place and play at that level was a huge blessing. But I almost gave it up because I wanted the applause of some people.
Yeah, it's a sneaky one, man. It's deadly because I think that God gives, I don't know if I would say everybody. I don't think I've met a lot of people that would disagree with this though. But just to be safe, I think a lot of us have a built-in desire for greatness.
I think as men, specifically.
Yeah, I think that we all want to, how you would define that, I guess, is different from person to person. But we all want to feel like we're doing something that matters and that affects other people. And that's greatness, And
Legacy.
so sometimes it is like having that legacy of hitting the buzzer beater in Game 7 NBA Finals.
Right.
Walk off, y'all win. That's greatness.
You'll be remembered
And
forever. Yeah.
also there is that greatness of, the family patriarch or matriarch that like held the family together through some hard time. Like we all aspire to be impactful and meaningful and have some level of greatness about us.
Right.
I don't think that's a bad desire. I think
Not
that's
at all.
part of what God has given us because we're made in his image.
Right.
I think that's what some of that means as well, is that we can be impactful, we can be obedient, and ultimately because we understand as Christians, it's the Holy Spirit in us that's now allowing us to carry that out and walk that out. So a lot of times it's like, well, how bad is it that I want the glory for being great? And I would just say, well, hold on a second. Because why did Satan get kicked out of heaven?
He wanted the glory.
He wanted the glory. So it's not just this like cute little thing of like, oh, everybody wants to be great. We all want to have that. Just like, no. There's a very clear distinction between being able to recognize, the hard work that you've put into something. Right. Because when people do come and compliment me on my message or on whatever else I'm a part of or doing, I understand that it took work for me to get there.
Right.
Like, yes, it was a gift, and yes, I didn't have to work hard at it like somebody would to get to my level right now where I'm at. But I had hundreds and hundreds of reps. I have written sermons. I have sat under so many different kinds of preachers and sermons and all these things. So it's not that I just like woke up one day and had a refined product.
Right.
I had a gift, but the Lord still has us refine it as well. So I can accept somebody being like, I love the way you communicate, or what you did was so powerful. Hey, thanks so much. I recognize, like you're saying, I put work in to get here, and it's good to applaud good hard work.
Right. We can give praise.
We should. We should. If we're the kind of people that's like, I don't want them to get a big head, fam, you've got a big head. Like if you're saying I don't want to give somebody else praise and accolades for hard work that they've done because I don't want them to get spoiled,
who are you?
what are we talking about?
Who are you? How do you know?
Why is your word so important and special that it could make somebody do that?
Right.
Like, that's wild.
Like, who do you think you are, bro?
So, when you've done a good job, it is not a sin to receive praise for a job well done.
Right.
And when you find yourself dependent on the praise that's coming in, like an IV, it's something keeping you alive. Well, I don't want to do it. I saying, like, for instance, something like this, a podcast. Like, God told me to start a podcast, and then I stopped 3 weeks in because nobody wanted to listen to it.
Right.
Okay, so did God tell you to do something, or did you want people's eyeballs on you?
Right.
That's a difference now.
What's your motivation?
Because if God told you to do something, the circumstances don't change your obedience.
Yeah.
If you have a fear of man, the circumstances will change it. It will. That's how it happens. In the same way, if you look back to Moses going up the mountain, they go up the mountain, Aaron's down left with the people.
Wild.
Moses is being obedient, getting the word directly from God. Aaron is now having to decide whether I am going to be more afraid of God or of these people. Now, these people were nuts.
Yeah.
But, like us, will make us a golden calf. He decides I would rather appease the people than God with my own obedience. So it's like, it's not that you don't get success. Aaron is also helping lead this group of God's chosen people. He's got giftings of leadership. He's able to do this well. He's an important piece of the story. And he chose in that moment to care more about what the people said about him and making them happy. So that's the thing is like, I don't think we want to paint this picture that it's either God is happy with you or people are happy with you. It's not always going to be that way. But when it comes down to it, there will be moments in your life where you have to choose for yourself. Nope, God told me to do this. And all of these voices that are trying to get me to not or to not be obedient. Or let's be honest, the fear of man is that fear of rejection, that fear of ourself, our inner voice saying, yeah, but what are people going to say? What are they going to think? What are they going to do? It doesn't matter anymore.
He's like, what about him?
I have a king. Jesus is the friend of sinners, but he is my king. And so what he tells me to do is what I'm ultimately responsible to do. So like, if you're getting thrown off because of some comments that are being put on social media or you're not getting likes, it's like, okay, so what are you actually after? Are you after making God pleased with your life? Are you after making other people make you feel better about yourself? Figure it out.
That's the thing. What's your motivation? I remember I've prayed this prayer a few times, and I think I actually believe it now. Like I said, I'm sure you've probably been here. God, if you don't give me nothing else, God, if you don't bless me with nothing else, if you don't let me have anything else, God, I'm gonna still serve you. I'm still gonna worship you. I'm still gonna do whatever I do. Yeah, I'm still gonna do it. Right? It sounds great to say, but when you really think about it, are you serious about that? Like, if God's like, bet, like,
okay,
I'm about to
stop watching porn.
Oh,
sorry. Okay. If you really believe it, stop doing that.
Stop doing, exactly.
Okay.
Like, so what happens when he calls you? He calls you out. He's like, "All right, put your money where your mouth is."
That's right.
He's like, "Oh, I was just kidding." Nah, I wasn't. I wasn't.
Do you know how much the Old Testament warns against you making promises to God that you don't keep?
Yeah, I heard you don't mean.
We don't have as many references in the New Testament about that, but all through the Old Testament, it's like, don't swear by God's name.
Because he gonna hold you to that.
Don't make a promise to God that you don't intend to keep, because there are consequences to breaking your word. So it is all over the Old Testament where it's just like, hey, why don't you say what you mean and mean what you say, and don't just say things to be impressive to God. He knows your heart as you're saying it.
Exactly.
Can't fool him.
Can't fool him.
So maybe shut up before you say something next time.
Right.
A good prayer as a good example of that is, I think it's a centurion in the Gospels, but somebody's asking for healing on behalf of somebody else. And, he says this.
The centurion's son?
Yes.
Yeah.
He says it's such a metal line to pray.
I love metal.
He's like, Jesus essentially saying, like, if you believe, it'll be done.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, I do believe. Help my unbelief.
Oh, my God.
I do believe, but help me where I don't. That's a better prayer to pray than, God, I will never, ever do that thing again. Yeah. So, no, God, I want to stop and help me stop. Not like, God, if, you can take everything away. Okay, but then when it all goes away because you're dumb, don't cry about it. You made a deal.
How you gonna cry over spilled milk that you spilled?
It's like betting your friend $100 and then losing the bet and being like, man, you're wrong for taking the 100. You made a bet.
You're a horrible friend. How could you?
You did that.
Right. And don't just slap God on
Idiot.
it. Yeah, don't slap God on it. God did this to me. No.
Just watch what you say to God.
Yeah, watch what you say to God,
because he hears you.
He knows you. He hears you.
He's not going to forget.
He's not going to forget.
He'd say, well, what was that, July 24th,
At
2007?
Yeah.
You said you were going to do this thing. You're like, I forgot.
I didn't. I don't know who that man is.
God didn't.
Yep, I ain't never heard nobody say that. It don't even sound like me.
So we've got you on 4K,
Okay.
fam. We've got you on 4K, film.
8K film, Dolby Atmos, hi-fi audio.
We got 3 camera angles on you, fam.
We got you in 18 different languages,
It's
bro.
you.
Like, it's been translated.
It's like those criminals in court or something like that. It's like, we have you on video. It's like, that's not me.
That's not me. That's
This
clear.
is 4K, fam.
You literally say, "This is my name, and I'm doing this."
You're holding a sign that says this is your name.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know who that man is.
I've never met that man in my life.
Deny.
Dumb.
But yeah, man, I think I want to end on this, man. I'm going through this book called The Fear of God, and in the introduction, it has like 4 statements of truth that I think are pretty powerful. And the first one, it says, number 1, we are human and we will fear. 2, the awe and fear of God is way deeper, more beautiful, and more intimate than many dare imagine.
Yeah.
Number 3, the fear of God swallows up all destructive fears. It's the fear of man that we're talking about. And number 4, the fear of God is the beginning of everything good.
Bars.
And you mentioned that. And so, if you listen to this, I implore you, please explore what the fear of God looks like in your life. Because it will radically change everything. It will change the way you think. It will change the way you move. It will change the way you love. Change the way you accept love. All of these things will come from that and more.
Yeah.
Things I don't even mention. And it's just, I know AJ and I can both talk about it all day, the things that God has shown us when we gotten the right view of who God is and what that means for our life. And I just want to impart that on y'all, man.
Yeah, it's good.
And so, thank you for listening. This has been Lessons and Blessings. It's your boy Shell.
Your boy AJ.
Like I like to say, stay wholesome, be blessed, win the day. Peace.
Peace.